Bienvenidos otra vez a otra Gramática Grandiosa. Yo soy Stephanie de Apex Languages. Welcome back, everyone. Today, we're going to talk about the alphabet, el alfabeto. Without a doubt, my favorite thing about learning the Spanish language is its alphabet. Compared to English, which everyone knows is a spelling disaster, Spanish is a breath of fresh air. When reading, you'll know how to pronounce things correctly 100% of the time. When writing, you should be able to spell with at least 90% accuracy. Now, Spanish isn't the only phonetic alphabet out there, but unlike, say, Russian, you don't have to learn an entirely new orthographic system. The Spanish alphabet is almost identical to ours. Can you see any letters that are different? Just ñ. And although it looks a little strange, it's the same sound that we use when we say things like lasagna and gnocchi, ñ. That being said, just because the letters look the same, it doesn't always mean that they're identical. I'm going to go one by one through the Spanish alphabet and explain how its letters are the same and what makes them unique. Let's start with the vowels. In Spanish, they're called vocales. There, of course, our good friends A, E, I, O, U, or in Spanish, A, E, I, O, U. Now, when you're spelling in Spanish, it gets very frustrating sometimes because E and I are A and E. So make it very clear which language that you're spelling in. I'll try to be consistent. I'll try to give you a clue if there's any possibility of confusion. But the great things about them is their consistency. Okay? A is always A. A is always A. In English, we have 16 vowel sounds and only 5 vowels. You don't have that problem in Spanish, so take a big deep breath and relax. Let's practice a little bit with these vowels. The words I've chosen here are cognates. That means that they have the same meaning in both languages, and they're spelled similarly, if not exactly the same. Cognates are another great advantage that English learners have when they're learning Spanish, and vice versa. Be careful though, because sometimes there are false cognates. That's when words look the same, but they don't mean the same thing. Our first word here is anaconda. Okay, in English we say anaconda. In Spanish it's anaconda. Okay, you see how I stress the O a little bit more. It's anaconda. Next, elefante. English elephant. In Spanish, that E's got the same sound every time. So elefante. Very, very important in Spanish. Unlike in English, unlike in French, every sound you see needs to be pronounced. So there's no such thing as a silent E in Spanish. Elefante. Okay. Next we've got iguana in English, but iguana in Spanish. Similar, but the E sound, not I. Iguana. Next, orangutan in English, orangutan in Spanish, orangutan. And finally, unicorns are unicornios in Spanish. So it's not the you, it's unicornio, unicornio. Moving on to the consonants or consonantes in Spanish, let's start with B and V. Why do I have these two together? Well, it's because the Spanish pronounce them the same. They don't distinguish between B's and V's. They instead pronounce both a little bit closer to the B sound. So, for example, avocados from Mexico. We all know this jingle. Well, in Spanish, it's abocado. And I think that's funny whenever I hear it because it sounds very similar to abogados de Mexico. Avocados, abogados. Yes, the G and the C are a little different, but avocados and lawyers, The word sounds the same to me. More traditionally, they tend to distinguish the B de burro and the B de vaca when they're spelling. This is how, if they're spelling something and they're not sure, they're going to ask you, should I use the B de burro or the B de vaca? They'll also say B grande for B and B pequeño for V, or B larga y B corta. C is simpler, or at least it's similar to what we already know in English. That's to say that it can be pronounced as either an S or a K. Semáforo, kilómetro, okay, S and K. So this is based on the letter that follows it, just like in English. So if it ends in an A, K, calle. If it ends in an E, S, centro. If it ends in an I, S, ciudad. If it ends in an O, condado. And if it ends in a U, cuadra. While we're here, it's also worth mentioning the ch, sh, and th sounds. CH actually used to be its own letter in Spanish. It was called che, and it begins words like chocolate. So everybody loves che. Sh and th, on the other hand, do not exist in Spanish, so that's worth remembering. Ch does, sh and th do not. Since I mentioned K already, I also want to make one more note about that, and that's going to finish me up for this video. K is very rare in Spanish. In English, it doesn't start a lot of words, but it ends a lot of words. You're not going to find the K at the end of native Spanish words like you do in English. And you're not going to see it in front of a lot of words. K is found in words that are borrowed from other languages. Kilometro we saw, because that comes from Greek, kangaroo, and other words that have been borrowed. This is also true with W and X. X is not a shock to anyone. Okay, obviously it's not the most popular word in English, although again it does end a lot of words, and that's not the case in Spanish either. But W is less common than X. In my dictionary, there were 99 listings for K, 30 for X, and only 27 for W. It's only used on words that have been borrowed from other languages. So K in kayak, W in whiskey, and X in xylophone. Okay, xylophone, of course. What other X word can you think of in English? Okay, but whiskey is a word that was borrowed from English, and kayak was a Native American word that was indirectly borrowed through English. All right, so keep that in mind. Your W's are actually very rare in English. Instead, interestingly, they prefer to use a GW. That tends to be pretty common for the W sound. So, what have we learned today? We've gotten roughly halfway through the alphabet. A, B, C, A, I, K, O, S, U, V, W, y X. X's, X's, X. All right, come back next time and we're going to talk about the ones that we haven't seen yet. But for now, I'm going to let you go. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Thank you as always for watching my video and have a great day.